Hello, and you're very welcome to another JMac podcast. I'm Joe Man. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by Orgrecha.com and Atak.ie. Use the promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on Orgrecha.com and get the best gains, gloves, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. On site, I'm joined by former Wexford player Matty Ford, former Fan TV Aaron Prendergast, host and creator, and nearly stumbled with words there, and Kevin McCarthy, former Antrim footballer. So we're here to talk about the Leinster final, the Munster final, the Ulster final, the Connacht final, and all the Tailteann Cup action, and this weekend's qualifiers and Tailteann Cup action as well. So we could be here for a couple of hours, lads, but look, where I've no better man to discuss all the action. Lads, I'll start off with Kevy. How are you keeping?
I'm good, John. Bit of a gubba weekend for the GA. I'll talk about gubba. If we go back to 1982 in Irish politics and the mayhem that was the charge hockey era, I think the GA finds itself in a bit of mayhem. So in terms of the gubba, the grotesque was the Kerry versus Limerick. You know, a 23-point win. Not good for anybody, just grotesque to watch. The unprecedented was the 17 points in the first half of the Roscommon Galway, you know, all from play. That's unprecedented, probably, I would say, in a provincial final. Where the bizarre was the fact that people today on Twitter and probably yesterday still think that there's life in the provincial championships, because there ain't, regardless of what happened with Derry. And I suppose the unbelievable was the fact that Derry have won after 24, 25 years, and it was great to see. And possibly also, Aaron, from your point of view, from Dublin's first half, quite unbelievable first half from them. So, John, we have a lot to discuss tonight, but I think there's an overlying elephant in the room, and that's the fact that regardless of this weekend, the GAA is in deep trouble in terms of its Gaelic football and what product it's serving to its paying public.
Kind of feels like a counselling session, this, Kev.
Yeah, and I'm just really going to be interested to hear the views right across this podcast, other podcasts. I'm really interested in what Aaron and Matty have to say about this. I really am. And, you know, I really do think we're at a crisis point. I do.
Matty Ford, how are you keeping? Lovely body bro top you're wearing.
Thanks, John. As I always say, it's the hanger, not the clothes, but that's for another time. Look, at the same as Kevin, I'm not going to be as articulate as that, but it was fairly inevitable. A lot of stuff that went on the weekend, and you know, while we were expecting probably a bit better from Ulster, it didn't really produce in terms of I suppose highlights or anything like that. Look, it was intriguing, of course it was, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. But I do agree with Kevin. Like, there's a handful of mildly interesting / close games in most of the provinces, but like 85-90% of the outcomes are more are inevitable, with the exception of Ulster, because there has been a few shocks in it this year, obviously. But you know, it's really on its knees, and you know, realistically, the Ireland quarterfinals is when the championship starts, and probably, you know, you'd probably be able to, on any given year, predict 3 out of 4 of the winners of the quarterfinals as well. So you know, we're down to probably 2-3 at best teams that can actually win the competition. So it's only a matter of sorting out the wheat from the chaff before we actually get to the business end of it, which is probably semi-finals and final. And you know, that's not a championship. You know, it's basically a blitz. So things aren't looking good. You know, as Kevin says, like the Mullins in Leinster and Munster don't do any good for either side, either of the 4 teams. And it's not looking good, I think, across the board.
What about the Tailteann Cup, Matty?
Look, it didn't, to be honest. We have spoke about here on a couple of occasions. Didn't really grab the attention of the weekend, as far as I'd be concerned. Anyway, I wasn't kind of on the edge of my seat last night, waiting for highlights or anything. And you know, it probably took about. No, look, I'm not being kind of smart about this. It probably took 10 minutes to show the highlights of whatever number of games was played over the weekend. And you know, look, I've just seen, like, even you could see the crowd in Tullamore nearly non-existent. I'd say there wasn't a couple of hundred Portlaoise, no more than a couple of hundred in it as well. And you know, that's a big, like, they're saying the idea is having these regional matches is, you know, have local rivalries, and that, you know, it certainly didn't at the weekend look like it spurred people into getting out and paying into the gate anyway, because I said Portlaoise and Tullamore looked very, very sparsely populated. So I'm sure you know, Carlow probably wasn't much better, and Longford I don't think was either. So you know, it probably will get a bit mildly more interesting as the competition goes on, but it was a bit of an inauspicious start, I'd say, anyway, to say the least.
Aaron Prendergast, how are you keeping, my man?
I'm doing good, John. I'm not doing too bad now. Enjoyed the Dublin victory on Saturday. 5 goals in 25 minutes. We got revenge on Kildare for the big league win. Glenn Ryan and Anthony Rainbow, the whole Kildare management jumping around and rejoicing after that big league win. But unfortunately, when it matters, Dublin turn up 5-17, the joint highest Leinster title win of any county. So yeah, look, but I would very much echo what Matty and Kev said there. I mean, there's definitely a lot of restructuring that's needed in the championship. And to be honest, it's like even having this conversation is almost frustrating, because we've been having this conversation really for the last 5 to 10 years. Like it almost feels like we're repeating ourselves.
Insanity. What's the definition of insanity?
Exactly. Saying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's actually what the All-Ireland Championship has come to. And like, I don't know if you lads have seen the proposal on the cards for the restructure of the championship next year, but it's going to be even worse. Like, there's going to be dead rubbers all over the place, group stages, and it's just an absolute mess. Like, teams finishing third in a group of 4, progressing through the championship, just absolute messing all over the place. And I suppose when Sligo and London is the most entertaining game of the weekend, and there's 4 provincial finals on the same weekend, that probably tells you all you need to know.
There we go. Before we go any further, massive congratulations to JMac podcast pundit member Johnny Murtagh on tying the knot to the lovely Margaret there last weekend. Kev, what's your take on that?
I believe Johnny's in Kerry at the minute, down in the Europe hotel. So hopefully the good lady's credit card's not taking a bashing, So good luck to him, and hopefully he gets a better run out there than he did with Crossmaglen.
I thought he done all right for the Rangers. Maybe not our Matty Ford.
Look, a fair play. Congratulations, Johnny. We'd sent him a few videos and stuff over the weekend, and there's a good bit of crack in it. But look, I'm sure no more than myself, better late than never, and he's got the job done anyway at last. So I won't be throwing any stones at him anyway.
That man, the Kevy's under pressure as well. Aaron Prendergast.
Yeah, no, massive congratulations to Johnny there for getting married. Big congratulations. And sure, look, that video earlier of Kerry, I'm going to be honest, when I seen that video, I was like, is that really Kerry? I mean, Jesus, climate change and all the rest. I mean, the world is definitely becoming a much nicer place, because I didn't think Kerry looked that nice. But sure, look,
me and Mario,
we'd say that,
Me and Mario disagree with you being 2 big Kerry fans against the Dub this evening. Kerry is the kingdom. They do produce the most beautiful beauties.
In every sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree to disagree.
Brilliant stuff. No, massive congratulations to Johnny Murtagh. We're looking forward to catching up with him in 2037. And brilliant stuff, lads. He's in Kerry for the whole week, so best luck, Johnny Murtagh boy. Lads, we will crack into last weekend's action. It was just unbelievable, but in fairness, we thought we were promised the moons and the stars, and unfortunately we didn't really get it back. But maybe yesterday saved our spirits to a degree. But there's only one place to really start, lads. Yesterday in the Ulster Senior Football Championship final in Clonus, it was Derry 116, Donegal 114 after extra time. Matty Ford, your thoughts on this game? What a win for the men in the red and white.
Yeah, look, no one can accuse him of winning a handy Ulster title to take out last year's All-Ireland champions, then Monaghan, then Donegal, the 3 top teams in Ulster for the last 10, 12, 15 years probably. So they've certainly done it the hard way. They've done it the hard way again yesterday. They didn't make life easy for themselves, but I suppose we were talking off air as a spectacle for the paying public, or somebody probably having a look in at a bit of GA for the first time. It wasn't a great spectacle. It was absolutely intriguing, but it didn't really grasp the nettle as regards a spectacle and a really top class game of football. There was some flashes of really top stuff in it. I think what we were looking forward to was, or I certainly was, a few kind of one-on-one battles. Now, while there was very, very few, like the 2 Derry cornerbacks against Brendan and McBrearty was absolutely fascinating, to be fair. Like, Creasy McCaig is, and I, in fairness, I did say about before the bled Monaghan that Shaq McCarron would have him for company, and I think he held him scoreless that day. He held McBrearty scoreless yet from play. Jamie Brennan was held scoreless in play. Michael Murphy scored 2 wonderful points, one of them from long way out. But when you have the Derry fullback outscoring the Donegal full forward line, they're going to be in trouble. And we talk on here a good bit about scores from full forward lines, and it's very relevant in a couple of the other provincial finals this weekend. But 2 points in play from the Donegal full forward line is not going to win your provincial championship when your 3 best players are there, your 3 highest scoring forwards. And as I said, Michael Murphy's 2 points, one was from a kick out, he intercepted and came through the middle and kicked a great point, and another one from huge distance out, where he was basically playing quarterback, which to me was crazy for such long periods of the match. I completely understand if to put him in full forward, he's going to have 2-3 men in around him, but it has to create a little bit more space around that D area. But look, I'm sure Rory Gallagher and the whole of Derry was delighted to see him in the halfway line, back to his half back line, taking hand passes and running 25-30 metres and hand passing it left or right, and then taking it back and doing the same on the far side. And it went back and forth on both sides, by the way, for most of the match. There must have been, it had to be 500 hand passes in the match. But look, at Derry were going to set up that way. We knew that. Donegal couldn't do anything but mirror it, and it was kind of whoever blinked first. And neither of them really went for it, particularly not in normal time. And it was only kind of nearly by accident that Donegal actually seemed to run out of steam near the end of extra time, and a lot of the guys going down with cramp and stuff. And like, Jesus, Brendan Rodgers was phenomenal, but I would have just liked to see Donegal trying to put a bit of pressure on him. Like, he was a deserved man of the match. He was amazing. But it was obviously a plan, because there was so many times both himself and McCaig and McCluskey even were so far up the field attacking. They were mad to really put McBrearty, Murphy and Brennan on the back foot. And you do that. Padder Morgan was excellent. He really stepped up in fairness with 3 points in play, and O'Donnell as well. But they weren't going to be the match winners in terms of getting a lot of scores. And if we had said here the other night that the Donegal full forward line, we held 2 points in play, there was only going to be one winner. As it happened, it took 90 minutes for us to get that. But on the flip side, and Derry scored, I think they had 1-8 from their full forward line. That included Niall Loughlin going off early, who really had made a really excellent start. With Benny Hearn the last day, looked like it was going to be Niall Loughlin this week, but he went off with an injury. I think actually he came into the game carrying an injury. But there was no midfield battle as such. There was an awful lot of short kickouts. It was very hard to see who actually won the midfield, because there was very few balls landing around there. Everything was short, and both teams are basically conceding kickouts. I thought it was interesting. It looked like McKinless played a lot of the game in midfield, but again, it was kind of irrelevant because positions were meant next to nothing for the most part. I think Conor Doherty probably did go and push up on Ryan McHugh, which was interesting. And I think it looked like, and it was very hard to see because, at stages, like, it was 15 guys and from one team on one side and the opposite on the other. It looked like Caelan Ward actually picked up Shane McGuigan, and he done really well. But in fairness to McGuigan, he came well at the end when he was wanted most. And like, it looked like he was gone. And it's him to come storming out of defence with the ball after the last free from Michael Murphy. So look, it wasn't the most intriguing, but I'd say if you're up around Slaughtneil or somewhere like that, or Swatford this morning, or the Loop, they're not going to be too worried about that. And look, I said I thought Donegal would win Ulster this year, but fair play to Derry. It's very hard to begrudge them after the route they're after taking, and where they only were. We were talking like down in similar terms to this only a couple of weeks back on here. That's where Derry were probably 5-6 years ago, and by Jesus, in fairness, they've got their house in order. And look, while it mightn't be pretty, I think after all the goals we had in Leinster against the likes of Dublin in particular, if we had been probably able to win a provincial final playing like it, I think I would have said, here, look, I'll take it for 1 year anyway and see what happens. But look, they're going to go in, and by the looks of the draw, they seem to have a very, very good route to a potential All-Ireland semi-final or final, and they're really, really going to fancy themselves. Whether this will work in Croke Park is the $64,000 question. It's fine in Clones. It looks like it is a huge pitch, obviously, but it looks like a more compact ground with the crowd very closely. But there is wide open space in Croke Park that are very hard to plug holes in. Like, and Tyrone have proved that against Dublin, or Dublin have proved that against Tyrone over the last number of years. But whether it'll work in there, but look, to be fair, we're talking about Wicklow this morning, or we're talking about Derry this morning. Sorry. And fair play to them, but it was. I personally thought it was a tough watch. But I said they're not going to be too worried about that this morning.
Not at all, Matty. And what did kind of impress you about the Derry performance? Because obviously, like, in fairness, it did go to extra time. Like, and obviously, you would have needed serious legs in like extra time as well. It was a piping hot day in Clonus, so really impressive stuff. And obviously, like, even like when Derry had the ball at the last minute, they were supporting the play, they're running up the field. So they looked like they could play another half of football, Matty.
Their fitness levels looked really, really impressive, to be fair. Now look, they probably have a much younger age profile, I'm sure, than Donegal. Donegal aren't an old team, but there's a lot of guys there who've played. Like even I thought this season Ryan McHugh has looked, I wouldn't say leggy, but he hasn't had the same impact on games. And he's like, you know, the ground he's been covering over the last number of years. Obviously Michael Murphy down. You can add in another handful of guys into that as well. You know, they have covered a huge amount of ground and played a huge amount of football over the last 10 years, and it looked particularly in extra time, it looked like it caught up on them. I just thought, we knew it was going to be close, and I just wondered if Derry were level or behind coming down the straight, would they have a plan B that, you know, that they were going to be able to kind of open up a bit and play. As it happened, they didn't kind of need to, because Donegal actually seemed to run out with a little bit of steam. They got the 2-point lead, and like the Donegal team of 3-4 years ago would have held on to that, I think. They did seem to me to run out with a little bit of steam, and I think they only looked like there was one team in it in extra time. Conor Glass and guys like this, McGuigan and Brendan Rodgers were absolutely tearing down through the middle of them in extra time, and it was a real problem for them, and they couldn't defend it. And like Devon spoke about it on telly, that it looked like Donegal had a more impressive bench, but you know, it certainly didn't turn out that way. But you know, the legs of when Derry turned over that last free, you know, there was 6-7 of them coming down the sideline with the ball at 100 mile an hour. It looked like it was the first minute rather than 90th, and you know, that sort of fitness levels have to be commended. But it was that's what it was going to take to beat Donegal, and they were very, very impressive. But look, it's probably whatever happens down the line is for another day. But you know, today you just have to commend them. And look at it, it's great for Ulster. It's great for Ulster that, you know, we're seeing a new winner again, and we're seeing, you know, a traditional, I suppose, superpower of Ulster football. And while all the provinces are under so much pressure, you know, Derry or Ulster is probably blooming at the moment, and it's never been more open than it has. And you know, if you could add maybe another team, the likes of a Cavan, back into that, you know, I think there's still a case for an Ulster championship, whether that's the right thing to do or not. But you know, it's certainly a proper championship, to be fair.
Absolutely, Matty. Rory Gallagher, we did talk about him in the last podcast. We've been talking about him for the last while. He is just having a superb run of form with Derry. 3 Ulster finals with 3 different counties. The first manager to do that as well, Matty. So what more can you say about R to the G?
You have to take your hat off to him, and then like to go and win it with one of the unfancied ones. You know, if he takes over Donegal and wins it, you know, that's great. They're a Donegal or a Monaghan, even for that matter, or a Tyrone, obviously. But to do it with a Derry coming from where they ever, you know, it was 3 years ago they were in Division 4. You know, that's impressive. So look, while I said it's not pretty, it's certainly modelled probably on the Donegal of, you know, 2011, 12 along there, and probably even maybe Tyrone to a certain extent. But look, it won. You know, will anyone in Derry be worried this morning about how pretty it was? They won't give a damn. And look, you have to commend them for that. And by all accounts, you know, there's been, you know, 4-hour training sessions. They mightn't be running to death for 4 hours, but spending 4 hours on the field, getting this kind of stuff, getting their shape, you know, getting tactics right. And you know, it's you get over what you put into it. And these guys have obviously put a hell of a lot into it. And you know, it's a lot of happy faces in Derry this morning. And it's great to see the scenes on the pitch yesterday. Was a throwback like to the mid to late 90s in any of the provinces, because they were all difficult to win at that stage. And you know, it was a class picture to see. And you know, the noise and the colour in Clonus yesterday, we were talking off air, like an Ulster final should be a must for any GA fan. I've been at one myself, and I'll be at them again. But they are a special day out. I think no more than a Munster hurling final, but for the football fan, an Ulster final is a special day, and like Jesus, it was special for them yesterday.
Colour, absolutely everything. The crowd was unbelievable, Matty. It's a special day. The flares, the red flares, the green, the yellow, the red, the white. It was just an unbelievable looking day in Clonus. The future for maybe Declan Bonner after this year, Matty. You know, another loss in an Ulster final.
Yeah, look, at as I said, they looked fierce leggy yesterday, and look, we often say that about a team after they lose, you know, or are beaten or whatever. But they do kind of look to have ran out of ideas a bit. You know, we spoke about Conor McManus and obviously about Michael Murphy at length here about their influence on teams. And once that starts to wane, you know, they don't seem to have players that are able to step into the breach. And look, you're not going to replace Michael Murphy. There'll never be another one. He's been an amazing footballer, and still is to a certain extent. But as his influence on the game's wane, so is Donegal's, and this team kind of just seems to have stagnated, I think, to a certain extent. And you know, are to go out and get beaten in the next round of the qualifiers, I think that very possibly could be close to curtains for Declan Bonner. But it's hard to see Donegal in an Ireland semi-final. You know, I think there's plenty of other teams out there who have more than the capabilities of beating them. But you know, maybe just a kick or two left in him. But I cannot even see him making it to a semi-final, to be honest. And that could mean curtains for Declan, I'd be afraid, at the end of the season.
My thoughts would be pretty much the exact same as that, Matty. Kevin McGurdy, your thoughts that took place in St. Terence Park, Clonus yesterday. A great win for the red and white of Derry.
Yeah, John, unbelievable. Terrific scenes. Everything that we associate with the past in the GAA, you know, a superpower really coming back to life. People scaling the fence. That beauty of seeing the colour of red, the flares after the game. However, let's not masquerade the fact, for me, it was an absolutely dire game of football to watch. Look, fair play to Rory Gallagher, fair play to Derry. I have many friends in Derry this morning that are very, very happy. And, you know, when we look look back at the game, we record Derry have won this game. But it was very, very hard viewing. It was lateral football for long periods of time. It was just, I suppose it was everything I didn't want the GA to become. But, you know, when you have to win a game, you have to win a game. I knew Rory was coming into this game yesterday morning. I put it into the WhatsApp group yesterday morning that he was coming in with these tactics, that he was going to come in with a plan against a team which he knew brilliantly well. And his team performed. I suppose the word we're looking, and we see it more often in hurling than we do in football, but Jesus, they were hungry yesterday. They were hungry in every aspect of the game. You know, forwards wanted to take on men. You know, Mally's beautifully articulated, you know, Brenton Rodgers in terms of wanting to get up and down that field. The fitness level of some of these guys was incredible. The tackling that they had at times was severe. So, you know, from a Derry point of view, there was a hell of a lot of positives yesterday. And I liked some of what Derry did yesterday. I mean, if we look at the first score of the game, which happened to be the goal, if we actually look at that goal and we rewind the play back, where did the goal come from? It came from the fact that the wing half forward wants to take his man on. The Donegal cornerback slips. I think it's Toner, has slipped inside. And I've talked to Matty in previous podcasts. I think Aaron was actually on this podcast where Matty, a forward in his own day that was ruthless in front of goal. Toner wasn't in the position to shoot, and he slips a lovely ball across to Lachlan, who is in a better position to slot the ball into the back of the net. And I think one of the things there that Matty's talking about, and I've talked about in previous weeks, is Rory Gallagher's attention to detail. And you could see that throughout Derry yesterday. You could see in their tackling, they were so well disciplined. Matty rightly articulates about the inside forward line of Donegal. Donegal scored 2 frees yesterday and 1 mark. In an Ulster final, they scored 2 frees and 1 mark. You know, the tackling was so good. You know, and people can talk about whether there was fouls or not, and Sean Hurston, whether he called them or not. It was so disciplined, the tackling. You know, their setup was so good. The way that they connected back to front, the transition, as we call it, was so good. Defenders coming out, breaking out. You know, Donegal didn't know where they were at times. And if you look at that opening quarter, I said this about 3 or 4 weeks ago in a podcast. Rory Gallagher's teams want to get ahead from the very start, and then you have to attack them. And that's where they beat you on the break. And that's exactly what Derry did yesterday. They invited Donegal onto them at times. You know, they swamped them up, and then they hit them on the break, and they hit them for scores. Now, 1 or 2 bits I have to point out is, you know, if we look at the point in the 50th minute by Conor Doherty, the recycling that went on there, that was under the town goal, as we call it in Clonus. One of the Derry forwards, actually I think it was Niall Toner again, took his man on, went inside into contact, slipped the ball out to Gareth McKinley, who then again went into contact, pops it out to Conor Doherty, who scores a point. You know, the recycling, the support play, the ability to make take the right options at the right time was generally really, really good yesterday by Derry. They got the right scores at the right time. Again, Mally's articulated. When you've got a player inside like Shane McGuigan, a lot of attention on him. He scored 5 points from frees, 1 point from play. You know, but he bought into the greater scheme of things. Conor Glass, the exact same. You know, but then we look at the flip side of this. And, you know, Derry people might get at me for this, but I'm going to have to be honest. Donegal yesterday were horrible. Absolutely horrible. from the Donegal that we know. Okay, we can turn back and say that, and Matty makes really, really good points about maybe they're stagnant. I said that earlier on in the league when I watched them. Again, Sean Cavanagh's made the point yesterday afternoon before the Gooch made it last night on RTE. There certainly is a point to be made that they're robbing Peter to pay Paul with Michael Murphy. He can't be a jack of all trades. They're going to have to pick a position for him because he can't be everywhere, you know. But when we look at some of the options that they took, in particular, Michael Langham, who is a guy that I rate very, very highly. If we look at a shot in the 10th minute, and then we look at his chance just before half-time in the 36th minute when the goalkeeper makes a bit of a boo-boo when punching the ball away and he's in open goal there. He panicked. You know, Donegal they weren't their assured self. You know, Derry invited them on. They took shots under pressure. They made the wrong options. I think that certainly Rory Gallagher got his matchups right at the back. You know, when you look at McBurdy, when you look at certainly Brenton Rodgers, but even when you look at a player who's been so influential like Jamie Brennan, you know, yesterday was basically anonymous in the game, you know. And I suppose when you're looking at teams, and Aaron's going to love me for this, when you're looking at Dublin, when you're putting out a fire like Kilkenny, and when you're putting out a fire like O'Callaghan, and when you're putting out a fire like Costello, you've still got Dean Rock producing. You've still got James McCarthy producing. You've still got, you know, Brian Fenton producing. And that's just three that I can think off the top of my head. When you put out that full forward line of Murphy, Brennan, you know, maybe Langham's not playing and McBurdy, Donegal are very one-dimensional as a team. Very one-dimensional. And I think they have stagnated. And I think they're in big problems now going forward. I think the writing's on the wall for Declan Boner, if I'm honest with you. I think that they got a lot of things wrong yesterday. But I don't know if we can bring up the clips I showed you earlier, John. Can we do that? No?
I'll have a look. Yeah, just leave that. Yeah, I'll try to get it going.
Well, maybe if we can't even bring them up later. I think there's a bigger talking point about this match. And the match, the bigger talking point is, Matty makes a really good point about Michael Murphy. But if we do put Michael Murphy into full forward, the rules of the game as they are will make sure that Michael Murphy doesn't win any high catches in or a big ball going in. The bigger issue coming out of this match yesterday to me was that the rules are totally wrong. The way the game set up is totally wrong. For make this to be a workable product, I think we have to change the rules. And, you know, as I say, I'll start where I finished. All credit to Derry yesterday. You know, it wasn't pretty to watch. It was inside the rules. But you know what? History will just record that Derry won for the first time in 24 years. And I suppose that's all that counts this morning.
Yeah. Aaron, what about yourself? Events that took place in Clonus yesterday?
Yeah, look, well, obviously it was Derry's first Ulster title in 24 years. And as Kev says there, like, history only remembers winners at the end of the day. And in 10, 15 years' time, you know, I don't think any Derry fan or anyone's really going to care really in the way that Derry have gone about it and in the style that they've played. But look, for me, like, it wasn't swashbuckling football, and it obviously wasn't, you know, what we've been accustomed to down the years in Gaelic football in terms of it being high entertainment. But for myself, look, it was a different way. I still enjoyed it personally. Like, I mean, it was a bit like a chess match in some ways. In some ways, it was a tactical battle. And different styles make fights. Like, there's different ways you have to win games at the end of the day. If everyone just played the same way, you know, you'd run out of excitement fairly quickly. In my opinion, that's something that what made the 14 game between Dublin and Donegal so special was the fact that it was a clash of styles coming up against each other. And I think that's what does make it interesting. But look, I suppose as Kev has said there, like, I mean, Brendan Rodgers was, I mean, he was unbelievable, wasn't he? I mean, Michael Murphy, I don't know why Declan Bonner didn't make a change, to be honest. Like, I would have took Murphy off Brendan Rodgers, especially when it went into extra time, because at the end of the day, like, Murphy, he is getting on a bit at the same time, you know that way? Like, I mean, and Rodgers, he wasn't getting tired, and the conditioning of the Derry players was unbelievable. So, you know that way, like, they weren't getting tired. Like, even when you seen that free at the end from Murphy, when it obviously gets blocked on the line, when all the Derry players are marching out, it was incredible. Like, it was like 6-7 players, you know, having played nearly 90 plus minutes, just driving out of the field with the ball. So it was incredible, really. And as I said off air, like, I think Derry now, like, they beat Donegal, they beat Monaghan, they beat Tyrone, they beat 3 of the powerhouses in Ulster. In the quarterfinals, it'll be interesting to see who they play, but I don't think they'll fear anyone. They won't fear a Mayo. They obviously can't play Tyrone again, so they could end up playing Armagh if Armagh beat Tyrone. The other 2 teams in the draw, they're either Cork, Louth, Clare Mead. You'd fancy them to come through that. Semi-finals, can they get through that? To get into an All-Ireland final is a real possibility for Derry. But the interesting one is going to be them in Croke Park, I think, because I don't think they've played in Croke Park since 2019. So, even coming up against the Mayo, let's say Mayo get past Monaghan, and then obviously come through the next round as well. Like Mayo in Croke Park in an All-Ireland quarter final, like that would be a tough one, certainly from a Derry perspective. But look, huge win for Derry, and obviously a breath of fresh air to see a different county win something as well. Like, obviously, John, we were saying yesterday, it's for the last 10, 15 years of following Gaelic football, it's always been really the same teams. Like, it's always been Dublin, Kerry, Tyrone, Mayo will come close, and that's really it. You might have Cork that'll win it the odd year. Galway might improve here and there, but it's usually been those 4 teams. So I think that's what we need. I think Gaelic football needs more teams, and I think, for the first time in a while, we might get, some competitive quarterfinals, which we didn't get throughout the Super 8s. We didn't get in 2017 or 2018. So, look, hopefully, look, Derry have been the saviour of the championship, really, because, geez, if we weren't talking about Derry now, I don't know what we would be talking about.
Can I just say, John, on this point, Aaron makes a real good point about Derry. I think Brendan Rodgers said it straight after the game yesterday. What I love about this Derry mentality is, yes, it's the first time in 24 years they've won Ulster, but they know themselves there's a lot more in this thing. The quarterfinal is not their, being and the end all. I think this is a semi-final team. The way they're set up, we can talk about, you were chatting to Matty about Rory Gallagher, a guy I know very well. Like, there's not a lot of genius about Rory Gallagher, he's been about football for a long time, and I'm not trying to discredit him. He plays within the rules as they're set out now, and he's got a setup, and I know a setup. Matty and Aaron know a setup. Most people in the country that follow this game know a setup, and it's difficult to play against. And this team are going to be very, very difficult to beat. And I think there's an inner belief and a momentum this team have now. And I love the way Derry are talking automatically is, look, what happened yesterday is they're almost saying it's over. There's a bigger will.
Fish to fry. Yeah.
And I love that about them. And I think that they're going to have a big say in this summer. And as you know, John, I'm not just blowing my own trumpet here. I talked them up at the start of the year in Division 2 to let me down a wee bit. But I think they've great talent, and there's a lot more to come from them.
100%. No, yeah.
Even Rory Gallagher's reaction, though, at full time as well, though, like, he wasn't jumping around or anything like that, or running around the pitch. Like,
he just looks so hungry. He's relentless looking.
Very calm. Like, it was like it's almost the full time whistle went, and he's like, right, good, happy days, let's enjoy it, on to the next one. So yeah.
But I suppose the word there is justice, because Donegal people ran him out of town.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons we don't know here, we can't speculate for that, but they ran him out of town. And you know what? I think yesterday Martin McHugh said it on RTE. Donegal were the only team he hadn't beat in the Ulster Championship in a game. So wow. He's now beat every other county in the Ulster Championship, whether he's manager for Manor or Donegal or whatever else, or Derry. So, he's got that monkey off his back yesterday. They ran him out of town. Again, as I said, I don't want to be too flippant here, but for me, this might be the end of this Donegal team. I just think it might be in terms of this particular team. And you know what? I think they could have achieved more under Rory Gallagher, but that's just my view.
Interesting point. Yeah, I just touching on that, Kev. Declan Bonner, the future for him, obviously, whoever to get in the qualifiers now, and the trials and tribulations of all that. Declan Bonner, it's another Ulster final loss, Kev. That'll not go down well with the Donegal folk.
No, my grandmother's from Donegal. My late grandmother's from Donegal. I have a great love and great passion for them up there. And to be quite honest with you, this has probably been their best ever team. They won Michael Murphy's won captain 5 Ulster Championship winning teams, and then only 5 ever before that. They've had a great run in terms of 10 of the last 12 Ulster finals. Nobody can ask people like McBurdy or Ram McHugh or Michael Murphy for any more. But to be quite honest, I think Matty's really hit the nail on the head. This team is stagnant at the minute. They brought Stephen Rochford in, who again is a guy, obviously has done well with Mayo. I think he was in McCorfin before that, done really well there too. So they've tried different things. Look, are they going to be in the top 3 or 4 in Ulster in the next couple of years? Absolutely. They're up there with Tyrone every year and Derry competing at minor level. They're going to be in the top 3, 4 in Ulster every year in terms of being able to get there. But really with this team, I don't know. I'm not writing its epitaph just yet, but I just think that maybe under Declan, their trajectory has been downward. There was a lot of talk last summer about whether he'd still be there this year, and look at where we are now.
Yeah, seems like Derry's rising and Donegal is falling, lads. It's an intriguing one to watch, but that's the Ulster final covered, lads. We'll move on to the Connacht Senior Football Championship final in Pearse Stadium. It was Galway 2-19, Roscommon 2-16, and Kev, I suppose Galway were in control for the full game, really. I know Roscommon had a bit of a late show to the party, but look, Pádraig Joyce, he's won a Connacht title as a player and now as a manager.
Yeah, look, congratulations to them. I've been their biggest critic all year.
Big Joe Joyce.
Finian hasn't been too happy with me. Finian Hanley, our good colleague on this, but I'm going to say very little on about this. I think that Roscommon probably saved the worst performance of the year for this particular game. They were particularly poor at the back. I want to say 1 or 2 things very, very quickly about in the 14th minute. Smith goes through, picks the wrong option at a crucial time in the game. I think it's 4 each. He goes through. There's a goal chance there. He hits a despicable wide at that stage. If he gets in, they score a goal. Galway are chasing the game a wee bit. What I would say about Galway is what I've said all year. Still, for me, they're poor at the back. They're easy to be picked open, as I've just said. That offered Roscommon a real chance early in the game for a goal. They didn't take it, and they were punished. But Galway up front are moving so good. So good. And one of the things I want to say that I really loved about Galway this weekend, and there's a guy that knows more than anybody, Matty Ford. When you're a cornerback, the worst thing that you want is a corner forward to win a ball and say to you, I'm going to take you on. I'm not going to win it and pass it. I'm going to go down your throat, and I'm going to make you. Walsh took his man all day long. Finnerty took his man all day long. Comer when he took his man all day long. Like Matty talked earlier on about Donegal scoring, 3 points from the full forward line? The Galway full forward line scored 114. 114 yesterday. Now, yes, Roscommon's defence was very, very poor and suspect. But that's a discussion for another day. What we must appreciate is Galway up front are a slick moving team, and they're going to cause teams serious problems. Now, isn't a Galway against a Derry going to be fascinating? Because I don't think that Galway forward line will survive with this Derry back line and that Derry defence, in my opinion. But when they were allowed to move yesterday, Shane Walsh is a footballer, as accomplished as anybody in the country. His skill, left foot, right foot, the way he takes on a man, his centre of gravity. Comer, a totally different animal than Walsh. Knock him the ball in high, he'll win it. Good feet for a big man, can take a man on, the strength. Finnerty just wants to score all day long. So, give Galway praise where it's due. I think it's their 3rd title in 14 years, their 1st in 4. Their forward line yesterday was really, really good, but that was, offset against a Roscommon that probably was their worst performance all year.
Matty Ford.
Yeah, it was particularly lackluster by Roscommon for the first 65 minutes. Maybe it was very un-Roscommon like the 2 Smiths were almost non-existent. Conor Cox really struggled, and then on the flip side, like you had the Galway full forward line absolutely tearing it up. But Roscommon, for some reason, they just wouldn't say they got stage fright. They've played in plenty of big games. They beat Galway in the league final in Croke Park only a couple of weeks ago, but they couldn't really get into the game. I do think McDade and and Conroy in the middle of the field kind of dominated to a certain extent. Alton Harney, I think, was kind of nearly ploughing alone for it. I think he scored 3 points in play as well, which is fair going. But I think the two guys definitely had the better of it. And one-on-one, the Galway full forward line in particular had the Roscommon defence and all sorts of problems. They could have had plenty more on the board. But as Kevin said, 114 from the full forward line from your, would they score that again at Derry? I don't think so. I don't think so at the moment. But all they could do was be what was put in front of them yesterday. And I think, well, Roscommon probably saved their worst performance of the year for then. Galway probably saved their best. It was quite impressive. Look, it wasn't the most full-blooded championship match in terms of heavy hitting and the Ulster final or Ulster type championship match. But Galway will be delighted. I sent a message to Pádraig this morning. I work with him and I played with him, and I'd be very friendly with him just to congratulate him, and they're delighted up there. I think he said there's a heavy pour on in Galway today, so I wouldn't doubt it for a second. But look, it was well deserved. That was their best performance of the year, and they haven't been overly impressive, strangely enough, playing at home over the last number of years. But it was good weather up there for once. There wasn't a gale blowing down into one end of the pitch or the other, and to really opened up in Shane Walsh. To really have a special player. He's the ability and the power and speed which he sidesteps off a foot, off like the first bounce where he got by the defender who went flying, but the amount of space he created himself with the other sidestep off his left to shoot with his right, and then he nearly hooked the ball around into the corner off the ground. You see the Donegal goal came from, I think it was Michael Langett had a shot, perfect height for the keeper, probably should have caught it, but the keeper wasn't getting near Shane Walsh's. Just unbelievable player, left and right, frees off the ground with both feet, 45, just everything. It's a bit surreal looking at it, and he would be one-on-one, be a handful for anyone, as would the other two guys in the full forward line. But against the likes of Derry, they're not going to be one-on-one. That's going to be the problem. But look, at no more than Derry, they deserve absolute credit for turning around what was kind of a poor enough performance in the league final and winning back the Connacht title. And I'm sure they enjoyed it last night and today. But it was very on Roscommon, and to be honest, I'm sure there is a bit of a kick left in Roscommon in this championship. They are a much better team than that. You look at their 6 forwards on paper and they're as good as anyone's in the country, in my opinion. But they certainly didn't fire yesterday. But 100%, and Kevin's been saying it all year. The couple of times they did get ball in 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 or even 3-on-3, the Galway defence looked in serious trouble. I think you could probably say that about a lot of defences 1-on-1. Conor Callaghan 1-on-1 with anybody, any top forward 1-on-1 with a defender will have him in serious trouble. And it kind of goes back to I never actually mentioned talking about Donegal game. Donegal only scored 2 frees, and the reason was they weren't prepared to commit guys 1-on-1 with defenders or make hard runs down the middle. Derry were, and that was the difference. But I think any defender 1-on-1 with forwards of the caliber of the either full forward line that played in that game yesterday will be in trouble. But I think defensively will be Galway's Achilles heel going forward. Look at the play like a Pádraig Joyce team, like Pádraig played himself. They want to attack, they want to kick the ball, they want to kick scores, and they certainly played like that yesterday. Look, I'm delighted for him this morning, delighted for Galway, but I'd say Roscommon could have a game in them, certainly in the championship, and they're well capable of taking a scalp before the championship's over.
Aaron Prendergast, your take on yesterday's Connacht final? I know it was obviously the curtain raiser for the Ulster final yesterday, realistically, but what's your take? Pádraig Joyce, he'll be a happy man this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a coming of age win for Galway in many ways, because I mean it's their first Connacht title since 2018, and you think back to, obviously, I think everyone kind of references that time period during COVID or just before COVID, when Galway were looking like one of the best teams in the country. I think a lot of people touted them maybe as the team to topple the Dubs, and they were probably one of the most unlucky teams maybe through COVID, just by the way things worked out. They, a lot of their momentum was halted. If you remember, Sligo pulled out of the championship in 2020. They lost the game. They went into the Mayo game without having played a competitive game. Last year, obviously Division 1 was, split into 2 groups, so they had less games. Going into Division 2 this year was probably a breath of fresh air, because they were able to try out younger players, try out different systems, and I suppose more, game time for Pádraig Joyce and for this Galway side, and they've really built the momentum. And I think the win over Mayo was huge in terms of confidence, because they hadn't beaten Mayo under Pádraig Joyce, and it was a huge result. But as Kev says there, I think in my opinion that the turning point was definitely when Enda Smith runs through. I think just before Shane Walsh's goal, he'd Eddie Nolan running right in front of him. He just played a forward hand pass Eddie Nolan has a goal chance, and that could have been the turning point. And Galway hit 1-4 without reply actually after that Shane Walsh's goal, which was probably the best goal we've seen in this year's championship. Like, incredible. And yeah, Killian McDade I thought was very good and around the middle as well. I thought he had a very, very good game. But yeah, it's an interesting one with Galway, because I would agree with Kev at the same point as well. Like, it's a weird one with them. Like, they're a great team, but it's hard to know if they're really at the same level as as the other three. I feel like if you're going into the quarterfinals, with all due respect, Galway is the team you might want to play, out of the four, to be perfectly honest. But at the same time, with the momentum behind them and having beat Mayo and Roscommon, look, they'll go into the quarterfinals fresher than Dublin and Kerry anyway in terms of challenges.
Just a couple of points, John. See the last point you make, Aaron? I would fancy Galway to go in against Kerry, because Kerry will play them head to head, right? But I would never fancy them getting against Derry or Dublin, because of the defensive setup. And that's, if you remember back, you make a really good point about. Do you remember they beat Kerry in the Super 8s?
Yeah, 2018, yeah.
Because Kerry tried to play them head on head, and Galway gave them as good as they wanted, up front. But I watched the game back this morning with the guy at Analysis for Celtic, and I want to say this to your viewers, John. Watch the two Galway goals, right? Where do they come from? Matty? Aaron? They don't analyze. Managers no longer look at who scores or how they scored. They look at the source of where the ball came from. Both of the Galway goals came from a kick out, and there is not a hand put from a Roscommon player on a Galway player on both goals. Watch it. It's absolute madness. There's no pressure on the Galway kick. They get the ball and they carry it straight out. There is not one hand in either sequence for 90 yards where the ball goes into the back of the net. Now, the second one is a wee bit fortuitous because it comes off the post, but there is not one hand put. And that is a big thing in the modern game. For me, the biggest tactic in the modern game is the kick-out press. And if Roscommon had the kick-out press yesterday, Roscommon's midfield has been really good all year. Alton Harney, and I think it's Eddie Nolan has been playing there all year for them. And they've been really, I watched them against Down, they were exceptionally good that day. Now, yes, I give it, Paul Conroy has been excellent for Galway, but I thought he got his fill of it yesterday, Manny. And for me, Roscommon should have pushed up in the kick-out, and they didn't. They didn't ask questions of Galway. So watch that back. For viewers, watch that back. There is not one hand put on.
Paul Conroy certainly got roughed up a few times yesterday. There was actually a couple of tackles which were, I think it was Eddie Nolan literally just jumped into him one time, nowhere near the ball. It was, I'll be honest, it was kind of dirty enough, but they'd obviously seen what he'd done both in the league final and against Mayo, and they weren't going to let him do it again. But in fairness, like Aaron said, Killian McDade certainly stepped up, and he shouldered a lot of the workload yesterday. And like when Conroy was probably kept a bit quieter, he still kicked his point near the end, and a really good one it was too, and it was important enough at the time as it turned out. But McDade certainly stepped up to the mark when he wasn't. But I think Conroy came in for a bit of treatment yesterday that he probably hasn't had during the championship so far. And said some of it was borderline now, to be honest, as well. But yeah, look at that is interesting, and this thing of, and we have spoke on here, for the life of me I can't understand why, with particularly Division 1 and 2 teams now, why you would give them the ball. It's hard enough to stop them, when it's 50-50. Why give them the ball? They're so good at keeping the ball, most of these teams now. Push up, take your chances, and the ball is one around the middle of the field. You still have a chance to get guys behind the ball, but at least you're competing for it. And to me, it's a no-brainer that you push up and kick outs, even if it's 6-on-6, 8-on-8. You don't even need extra men, but at least don't hand them the ball on the plate and say, "Here, look, come and attack us," because the better teams will kill you.
John, maybe I'll get that up the next time we're on, right? A video of it. It's absolutely unbelievable that Roscommon didn't do that. The other point I'm going to make, Matty and Aaron, and I hope you agree with me in this, is Finian had a bit of a go with me yesterday in the WhatsApp group. This isn't reality for Galway, because if they do face a Kerry, then I
might be able to get that on YouTube, Kev. Which goal was that?
Both goals. Both goals.
Have we look, yeah.
The second one's a wee bit fortuitous. I'll give you that, because he goes for a point, comes off the post. But you should look at that. The other point I'm trying to make to you is that yes, it's great for Galway to win, and it's great for the GA to see somebody else new winning out west the first time in 4 years. But lads, it isn't reality for Galway. It isn't reality for Porrick Joyce. The reality is going to be in a couple of weeks' time when they meet somebody like Derry. You know, they haven't come up against their fence like this.
It's going to be interesting to see what they get in the qualifiers. I think that's or the quarterfinals, I should say. I think that's going to be, because if they came up against a Tyrone or someone of that nature, I think that'd be very intriguing.
Absolutely. And we'll bang on with the games, lads. Just waiting for that to load up. And we'll move on to Saturday's action, lads. We'll struggle through it. We'll go to the Leinster Senior Football Championship final in Croke Park. It was Dublin 5-17, Kildare 1-15, and Mr. Prendergast, you're a happy man, but as you were saying to me yesterday, you've seen Kildare fans in town, and they were in the pub at half time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the game live, obviously, because I was out for the mighty Liverpool game. I was in town in the pub, but I did watch the game back the next morning. But I remember when you were hearing the score go in, and you were hearing, geez, Dublin with 5 goals after 25 minutes, you couldn't quite believe it, really, because I think a lot of people expected Kildare to give a much closer game and to be a lot more competitive. And genuinely, I was seeing on Twitter during the week, a lot of Kildare fans really believed that they'd win this game, to be honest, you know, after beating Dublin in the league. Look, I think every Dublin fan was very confident that we were going to win this game. I think it would have been a bit of a massive shock if we didn't come through it. But as I was saying off air to everyone here, like, I mean, the way we played and the energy that we played with was brilliant, really. And 5 goals in 25 minutes was extraordinary. Con O'Callaghan, like, what a difference he's made to the team. And you know what's interesting, in the league, I felt like Dublin were playing, they were too passive. There was too much, you know, it was too much of a running game, lateral hand passes, no emphasis really on kick passing. They weren't being direct enough. We weren't taking men on. We were just being way too passive, and I'm not too really sure why it was. I don't really know what it was about, really, to be honest. But in the championship, there's definitely been a switch, and you can see us moving way more back to Jim Gavin 2013-14, as I said, back in those kind of early days. The you know, the intensity that we're playing with, the kicking game as well. Con O'Callaghan's been, you know, exceptional since coming back in. And what's even incredible as well is Noel Scully hasn't been able to get into the team in the Leinster Championship, and no one's even been speaking about it because it's been going so well. But look, it's a weird one. You know, we still won't know a whole lot about whether Dublin have, you know, turned the corner fully until they beat one of the big teams. But at the same time, I'd much rather be in Dublin's shoes going into the game against Kerry than Kerry's shoes, because at least Dublin have players in their team that have been there, that have done it, that have worn the t-shirt, won the games. Whereas Kerry, on the other hand side of things, we know when they've gotten big games, they've bottled it in many ways. So at least you know, at least we have that going for us. But look, in terms of the game, brilliant win, huge result, and yeah, you know, it was nice to see the Kildare fans all coming into the living room nice and early.
Absolutely. And were you impressed by the way Dublin took all the goal chances as well, Aaron? Like, it was a bit of a blitzkrieg back in the day.
Oh, it was, but I mean, because all the talk before the game was that we weren't scoring enough goals, and we scored more goals from open play in 25 minutes than we had in the previous 10 games. So I mean, obviously something had probably been said to, you know, the lads obviously going into the game, and you know, because the thing is about Dublin as well, they almost look angry when they're playing. They look like, you know, it's almost a fighter that was beaten up, you know, a couple of months ago. They've gone back to the gym, regrouped, and now they're just knocking out everybody. That's what it almost looked like in many respects. And you know, look, if we can continue that level of performance going into the quarterfinals and semi-finals, it's going to be very interesting.
Absolutely. Matty Ford, your take on action that took place in Saturday in Croke Park?
Yeah, look, I missed the start, but I was actually watching the Heineken Cup final after the Munster final. So
that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, bad weekend all around for me. But just I couldn't believe, like, this, whatever the score was at halftime. What was it, 5-2 12 to 1-7 or 5-12 to 7 points, something ridiculous.
Yeah,
but I think
15 or 16 points up, I think, at half time.
Yeah, like the James McCarthy's come back, but I think the single biggest factor and person in it is Conor O'Callaghan. I think the attack now have a real focal point of attack. Like what Dean Rock had been tried there, Costello had been tried there, probably even Kieran Kilkenny. And I fully believe Kilkenny's best position is where he's playing, either wing forward or centre forward. But O'Callaghan is a real focal point of the attack, and he proved that again. I seen him live against Wexford, and he was awesome. He really had. But they all seem to have their mojo back, and the factor back in Croke Park. Back with the home comfort of where they're most used to playing their games. It's not the same as Parnell Park. They're back where they are most comfortable, where they play most of them. But he has been ultra impressive. But Kildare were so naive in their defending. Like the amount of balls were just popped in around the D for O'Callaghan to run onto with 2-3 runners coming off him and running through one goal. It was like a training drill. To be honest, some of the defending was shocking from Kildare. And I know people have said that on Twitter and stuff over the last couple of days, but it was like to leave O'Callaghan there 1-on-1, with that much space in front of the ball, it had been popped in 30-40 metres in front of him, in front of the D. It was a cakewalk for Dublin. And Dublin are that one team in the country when they come to hurt you, they'll really do it. And said like 5 goals in 25 minutes has to be some kind of a record, but that's what they do. They really pile pressure on you. Really, really quick, and by Jesus, I'll tell you, they done it on Sunday. But no more than Kerry and Aaron said it perfectly, that we don't really know where they're at until they play a Mayo, till they play a Tyrone, somebody like that, for a bit further down the road. And that's obviously the very same goes for Kerry. But look for Dublin, it's the swagger, as I said, is back. Leinster champions again, 12 in a row, and the big guns are back. McCarthy's back. Small is back. James McCarthy obviously is a huge addition back into defence, and he's team captain as well. But Brian Fenton seems to have his mojo back. Kieran Kilkenny has been the one constant, in fairness to him, all through the year when a lot of guys around him maybe weren't playing particularly well. So Dublin are still fit and healthy, and they're not gone anywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I suppose, Maddie, your take on the clinical nature of Dublin, 5 goals and a half of football, not bad going, Maddie. You can hear me, Maddie, now?
I think he's just popped off, John.
Oh. Hello.
Hello, yeah, I can still hear everyone.
Oh, Maddie. Might be. Can you hear me, Kevin, Aaron? All good?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, super. Can't see you, Kev, unless your camera. Is your camera all right?
It should be. All right. Can you see me all right?
Yeah. Maybe Jean-Pierre Joyce has come in and.
Yeah, no, your camera's gone black for me, Kev. So I'm not sure if you want to try log in and out. But sorry, Maddie, I think we lost you there for 1 second. Can you hear us? All good?
Yeah,
perfect. Sorry, Maddie. Yeah, no, just on the last question. Just your take on Dublin's clinical nature, like 5 goals and a half of football, not bad going.
No, it's not even a half of football. Like it was little more than half of a half. It was really, really clinical. But I said the Tyrone, they could not score them. To be honest, the Kildare defending was just. I couldn't believe the amount of space they left in around that D, where there was nobody dropping back to cut out the supply to O'Callaghan. He was winning the ball very, very easily in front of the full back, and you had guys running off in 2s and 3s, and I wouldn't, the poor Kildare goalkeeper, it wasn't a nice place to be for him. Those guys running down his throat. Poor old Shea Ryan at full back was left. Was left all alone. And as I said, previously in the talking about Galway and Roscommon, being left 1-on-1 with any of the top forwards in Croke Park in that much space is not a nice place to be in. I really kind of feel sorry. Look, I think Kildare are a bit better than that. I'd like to think so anyway. And they might have I think if they get a draw in Newbridge, there will be a kick in Kildare. But I think they'll have a good hard long look at themselves over the next week or so before the draw, probably on next Monday morning. But it was the defender was just so naive. I said I couldn't figure it out.
Absolutely. Before we jump on, Kev, I think I have that moment for you. Could you see my share screen just before I bounced on there? I was trying to share my screen there. I'll try again. Just bear with me, gents. I see. Can I get that? Can you see it there now?
No, unfortunately not.
No. Could see it earlier, but I can't see anything now.
Anything now? No.
No, sure, we'll do it up the next time, John, when we're talking about the future of the game. But
super.
No, just on the Dubs, I think Matty and Aaron have said enough about it. Just one quick point on Kildare. I think Matty said, hit the nail on the head. It wasn't reflective of where they are at the minute. It was a poor enough performance by them. And they are a wee bit closer to Dublin, maybe a year or two yet before we see a real sterner, performance against the Dubs. The one thing I would say is, again, look back at that first goal, comes back to my original point about the Derry forward line taking on Donegal, comes back to my point about Walsh, Finnerty and Comer. The first ball that comes in to Conor Callaghan, what's he do? Catches it, faces his man down, wants to take him on. That sense of adventure, looking down the defender's throat. Defender can't cope, back in the net.
Massive miss during the league, Kev. Massive miss.
Yeah, he just adds so much of a different dynamic. And as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, he's so brave as well. People think he's just a slight little boy. He's so brave. And, by the way, Costello's finish for the second or third goal was exceptional.
Flawless.
Composure, was great. And what I love about the Dubs...
Jeremy Conley-esque.
Yeah, what I love about the Dubs is, unlike the Dubs in the 90s, where they're always relying on, late 90s, always relying on someone like Ray Cosgrove or one or two inside forwards, this team, the front eight of this team will all add to the scoreboard. When they're just finding their mojo, that's a scary thing. And you know what? I wrote them off earlier on in the year, but they might just be favourites for the All-Ireland right now. There's still a wee tickle about their defence that I'm not sure about, but that'll be played out in a couple of weeks' time.
100%. Very last point on it, Kev. I believe Mr. Glenn Ryan was going absolutely berserk at half-time. Probably all the reason for it. It's a lonely place, Croke Park, when you're getting bet by that much, Kev. The future for Kildare going forward, there is a few bright shoots this year, but it's all about championship, that a good league. But at the end of the day, you want to be walking up the steps of the Hogan stand, lifting that Leinster trophy. Yeah, but
that's their next step for them, but they're 2 or 3 years away from it. They did a good under-20s last year. They did a good under-20s again this year. So you know what? It's a matter of a wee bit of patience. Glen Ryan's just come in this year. They did have a really good league, as I said to you numerous times. They probably should have stayed up and won. They're kicking themselves a wee bit about it. Two's going to be really competitive next year with Dublin and Derry in it. So, that's maybe their focus. But, give them a year, 2 years from now, and we'll see where they're at, is my opinion on it.
Super stuff. Brilliant stuff, lads. Brilliant stuff. And oh God, it's not going to get any much better, lads, but we'll just have to cover it anyway. The Munster Senior Football Championship Final, it was in Fitzgerald Stadium. It was Kerry 128, Limerick 8 points. Briefly touching on this, lads, because it's a Monday and a lot of us have probably the Monday blues, so we'll briefly touch on this. Manny Ford, Kerry, home and host.
Yeah, look at it. I know Limerick were promoted, but it was real Division 1 versus Division 3 stuff, and we've said on here over the last couple of weeks that the teams in Division 3 and 4 are making no headway against the top teams anymore. It's just the gap is getting wider and wider, and this was case in point the other day. We were talking about squeezing kickouts, and Kerry, obviously made a conscious decision to really squeeze up on the Limerick kickout here, and cause them untold problems. Even when they did get their kickout away and won it, they were nervy in possession. And that's understandable. They're a Division 3 team playing Kerry and Killarney in a provincial final, their first one in a long number of years, and obviously the first for all of these guys. But they were making mistakes that Division 3 and bottom of Division 2 teams are making, hand passing the ball kind of behind guys or at their feet or passing under pressure. And, Kerry were eating it up. And it was a glorified practice match. It wasn't even a good practice match at that. Now, Kerry scored 128. Bit like Dublin, they'd probably be a little bit concerned at their lack of goals. They're not going to score 28 points to get everyone. So to beat the likes of the Dubs, you're probably going to need to score 2-3 goals. And just thought some of the decision making where they had probably goals on. I think the likes of Dublin, who would be ruthless, would go for goal and would put that game away and win it by 40 points if they could. But the Kerry created a few half decent goal chances, would end up tapping them over the bar and stuff like that. And down the line, you're only going to get a chance or two like that in a game, and you have to be ruthless and you have to go for it. I know, maybe they didn't want to go overboard on the score, but there's not a whole lot you can say about it. You'd feel sorry for Limerick. has there ever been a team 100-1 on in a provincial final? I think that tells you all you need to know about it. And, you feel sorry for Limerick. Look, there will be a tough ask for anyone if to get a home draw, but it was a complete mismatch. From minute one, and the score could have been realistically anything at the end.
Very well summed up, Matty. Aaron, what about yourself? Obviously, I think maybe the only takings, as I said just earlier on, maybe the carry forward movement in the second half is very impressive. But again, it was against a Limerick defence at the end of the day. Aaron Prendergast, have we learned much from that game?
No, we haven't really, to be honest. I suppose maybe we've learned that Kerry can still beat these teams by 20 plus points without David Clifford. Maybe that's the only slight learnings, but yeah, the game didn't do anyone any favors. Like, I think the fact even that Clifford got injured in a challenge game against Roscommon the week before probably tells you a lot that you need to know, because Kerry aren't being challenged in the Munster Championship, and Clifford picking up an injury in a challenge game probably says he was probably going hell for leather, because when else are they going to get tested, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, look, Killian Spillane finished with 1-3. I thought he played well. Like, he's been a player who's kind of been on the fringes for Kerry for the last sort of couple of years. Very good. I remember he came off the bench against Dublin, I think in 2019, in the drawn game, and played very well. So yeah, look, I mean, I don't really know what you could say. I mean, Josh Ryan might, maybe scored the point of the year for Limerick down near by the sideline. That was an extraordinary point.
Big man.
He is a big man, all right. Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to be walking down a laneway with him on the other side. But look, no, I don't really know what to add, really, to be honest. There's nothing really else to add. I mean, I think for Limerick, it would have been nice to see them get beat by less than 20 points, less than 15 or 10. So at least they go into the qualifiers with a bit of momentum. But there's nothing really else to add, unfortunately.
Kevin McCarthy.
3 points, 1 mismatch, 2. Really like what Aaron said on Killian Spillane. Very much like Darren O'Sullivan. Low centre of gravity, great pace. He just needs to maybe believe in himself a wee bit more and get that chance a wee bit more. But I think he's a great scoring forward for Kerry. And I suppose the third point is Matty makes a really good point. And I would also associate that with Donegal this weekend. When there was options for a goal, when they maybe penetrated that Derry defence, Donegal didn't take the right option now and again. They should have went for that wee bit more glory. Same with Kerry. So maybe something to learn from both them teams moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's all we can really say about Saturday's Munster final, lads. And we will touch on to the Tailteann Cup action that took place on Saturday as well. Obviously, Aaron was briefly touching on probably the game of the weekend, really, lads. In Mark Fitzpark, Tailteann Cup round 1, it was Sligo 3-15, London 2-16 after extra time. So went all the way. Aaron Prendergast, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, look, I mean, very, very entertaining game, but I think the story really is about London, because again, just this never say die attitude, and even Michael Maher's interview after the game, he almost looked devastated. He looked gutted, and that probably shows how far London have come. Really, I mean,
he's done a superb job.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the year, let's be honest, I don't think anyone expected London to win a game. To be honest, maybe if you knew on the inside, or the few lads behind the scenes, maybe it'd say different. And it wasn't because London don't have quality. It was just they hadn't kicked the ball in a competitive game since since early 2020. So the fact that they won 3 in a row, they were competitive in nearly every game. They come very close to coming through this game. I think they can take a lot of learnings going into next year, and with a few more improvements, maybe a few more lads in. You're looking at Division 4, and Leisure on the slides. A lot of teams maybe not got their house in order there. London could push for promotion next year. They really could. Mm-hmm. But for Sligo, look, big win. Very attacking team, as we very well know. Finishing with 3-16. Noel Murphy, top class player, and yeah, they have Leitrim once again, who I'm sure they're fed up of playing at this point. But they've got Leitrim in the next round of the Tailteann Cup, and that'll be an intriguing one.
Absolutely. And moving on to Glennon Brothers Pierce Park, it was Fermanagh 1-12, Long for 12 points. Good win for Fermanagh. Mr. McCarthy.
Yeah,
was
look,
another
Kieran
edition
Donnelly's
of the
doing a
JMac podcast.
decent
And of course,
job
this
down there. I
podcast is
watched
brought to
some
you
of the
by
highlights.
orgorich.com
In
and
fairness to
Atak.ie.
RTE, I
Use
have
our
to
promo
say
code
this, it
JMac
wouldn't be
podcast to get
very
15%
complimentary
off
about
on
them, but they showed 3 or
orgorich.com.
4 minutes
Get
on
the
each
best
of
skins, gloves, and equipment
the
on Atak.ie.
Tailteann Cup
Get
games. So in
the top
fairness, they
money.
are
And if you like
buying
what you
into it
see,
a wee
like and
bit.
subscribe to the videos. Remember,
Again, a
it's
poor
supposed to be
crowd, but
absolutely brilliant
you know
sport.
what?
Thank you
It showed
guys,
what it
and
meant
stay
to
tuned for
Fermanagh.
more
You know, they
future
got that
episodes.
goal towards the end. The young fella who was injured, they're talking about going to the Aussie rules. He scores the goal towards the end. Again, you look at the Jones brothers, both Conor and Ryan Jones, stepping up to the mark as well. So you know, Fermanagh, this is a competition Fermanagh can win. You know, they play Cavan, and that'll be a close one. But you know, Kieran's really, you know, he's a good coach. And as I said at the start of the year, you get a lot of buy-in from these guys. And that'll be a local derby in the next game. But, you know, it's a good win going down there. Glennon Brothers Pierce Park is never an easy place to go for any team. So to go down there and get the win, you know, is a big thing. And, you know, fair play to Fermanagh.
Absolutely, Kev. And moving on to Kingsman Breffni Park, it was Cavan 24 points down 112. Matty Ford, good win for the Breffni Blues. Ray Galligan had a star-studded performance, saved the penalty that was took twice, saved it twice. He was just brilliant, but routine victory for the boys in blue.
Yeah, look at along expected lines. Look at down started decent in fairness to him and gave themselves a little bit of a foothold earlier on, but you know, Cavan's class, even though they're in the same division next year, Cavan's class told you know, over the 70 minutes, 24 points is serious scoring again. Look at it, looks like, I know you have, and probably some of the rest of us have tipped up Cavan to win this thing, and it's obviously something they're taking pretty seriously. So look at they done what was needed to be done, and done it pretty well and pretty comfortably. And I'd say 7 points from a keeper, I think, has to be some kind of a record. It's fair kicking.
He plays outfield for his club.
Yeah, look at, and he's striking at the ball. Obviously, he's a keeper and he takes a lot of kickouts, but he's striking from distance of free kicks and stuff like that is exemplary. And it's probably one of the highest scoring goalkeepers in the country, I'd say, at this stage, at any stage. But look at Garrod McKiernan with 6 more points and Paddy Lynch with another 4 and stuff like that. So, you know, another home draw for Cavan is with Fermanagh.
Away in Enniskillen on Sunday.
Look, I'd still fancy him to come through it, but you know, like Kevin says, Fermanagh will be a team that, if they're obviously taking it seriously as well, to go down to Pierce Park, which is an unmerciful tough place to go to, and come out with a win. So they're obviously taking it pretty seriously as well. And look, at the end of the day, it is a bit of silverware, and there won't be any love lost up there, I'm sure, at the weekend. And, you know, it won't be easy for Cavan, but I do expect him to come out with it.
Yeah, I'd be fairly nervous, John.
Oh, don't you start this absolute nonsense again. Holy Mother of God. It's Monday hour, no trade room a week already. Moving on. Move on. Just on a side note, Kev, obviously down. James McCartan, another year done and dusted. 10 players obviously left since Monaghan game. What more can you say?
Yeah, I think obviously people might know I'll come on here and box for James. I've been through a lot with him. McQueen's and, you know, for 4 years or whatever else. I need no rock as well. Look, the way that things have worked out there has been quite despicable. James has given his heart and soul to down when he's been asked to do a minor job, when he's been asked to pick up the under-20s, when he's been asked to pick up development squads, he's done it. I think there's he's been treated with a wee bit of contempt. I would expect James himself to walk away now. The big issue is who comes in, down, or I think Matty articulated this brilliantly earlier. Down find themselves in a position where Derry were maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago. Difference is Derry got themselves together. They got their schools working. As I've articulated in this podcast before, there is no other county in Ireland, probably bar Dublin, that has the amount of schools that Down have producing players. And that's a big issue for them. So they need to go back down to base. It's going to be really interesting who they appoint there, but I would expect James to walk away now. And I think it's an absolute embarrassment what's happened there.
Yeah, not great soundings from the Down camp and Saturday's defeat. And again, with that, doesn't go down too well. And we'll move on to Carrick Shannon. It was Leitrim 2-14, Antrim 1-12, and Kevin McCarthy, you're scratching your head at this one, no doubt.
Yeah, you are. And again, probably in the McGinley, Stephen O'Neill, my own ex-club mate Sean Kelly would be. Look, you're talking about taking this seriously. if they went down there with professional attitude, I'm not saying this the management, but they didn't. In fairness, people like Keith Byrne, who I know that on this podcast in weeks past that Aaron's talked up a lot, really, Keith Byrne, people like that really came out on top for Leitrim. They got the goals at specific times in the game. Okay, a bit of a keeper flaw for the first goal, but look, the story is Antrim didn't turn up. They didn't really make the changes that were needed. And it's a bit of a watershed moment in Antrim because now you're going to get the likes of Michael McCann, Tomas McCann, Conor Murray now leaving the panel, the better players. They've got young lads coming through. Look, I'm not in any way being derogatory. They just aren't good enough for inter-county football. They have a very poor panel. Division 3 is going to be really competitive next year. The management team has just left. And all the signs are pretty negative at the minute. We were hockeyed. The under-20s were beat by Derry by a point or two, nip and tug game. The minors were hockeyed all year. The under-16s were hockeyed. The next 10 years doesn't look good for Antrim. It's Division 4 football by the looks of it. So, a bit of a watershed moment yesterday with the players that have given so much good service, as I say, the likes of Mick Tomas, Conor Murray, these sort of guys are going to be retiring. So, Eddie McGinley's moved on. It's going to be St. Jude himself wouldn't take that job on. It's going to be a brave guy takes that job on. But look, good luck to them.
And McGinley going, Kev, fully expected?
Yeah, I think that, look, he could see himself. The writing was on the wall. I don't know really what's going on behind the scenes. But when you have a couple of years, look, did they progress under Eddie McGinley? Some would say yes, given the fact that they got out of Division 4. But they got beat this year by 2 Division 4 teams. And that's a sad situation. When you think where you were possibly with 2 games to go in Division 2 into the Sam Maguire. So it's been possibly 3 steps forward, 4 steps back. But listen, he didn't leave no stone unturned. And I hear that the setup was very professional. So listen, all credit to him. He seems like a real good guy.
There we go. Hopefully, Antrim can get a replacement sooner rather than later for Enda McGinley and Stevie O'Neill. We wish them luck going forward. And moving on to yesterday's Tailteann Cup action briefly. In Netwatch Cullen Park, Carlow 112, Tipperary 110. Aaron Prendergast, that is a serious win for the Carlow Fupplers.
Yeah, it really was. Like it's kind of funny. Like I was nearly thinking if there was a game going into the weekend that was a sure bet, you nearly would have backed Tipperary to come through this because, I mean, Carlow I think had the worst defense throughout the entirety of the league. And I was listening to Daniel Hussey on your podcast, John, and I couldn't believe when he tipped Carlow to beat Tipperary, to be honest. But geez, I don't know how he can predict the future. He's obviously gone and got this one right, but. Look, fair play to Carlow. Like, you've seen even some of the supporters. Like, I don't know if some of you have seen some of the images with some of the Carlow fans and the flares and all the rest. Like, I think it's just great. Like, it's great. This is when you see a result like this. That's when I know there's been a lot of negative press around the Tailteann Cup and everything else. And look, it isn't the most perfect competition. I think we can all agree with that. But when you see moments like that, the Carlow players jumping around, celebrating. It's a huge moment because they've had a very difficult year, difficult few years, and Colm Hutton, Dara Foley stepping up again, and plenty of other new players in there that we're probably all not too familiar with because we haven't seen them play too often. But yeah, no, look, fair play to Carlow. Would have been nice to see them play New York in the next round, just so one of them progresses on to the semi-finals. And maybe it's a game New York could have won, and that would have been a bit of a story. But look, fair play to Carlow, and going into the next, I can't remember who they have in the next round off the top of my head, but they'll certainly go in bonus territory now, in my opinion, anyway.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. And moving on to MW Hire O'Moore Park, it was Westmeath 113, Laois 13 points. A good win for Westmeath. They'd be one of the favourites to win this competition, and I've seen a great picture of Ross Munley and his mum after the game. Surely that's the end of the road for Ross Munley playing for Laois, Matty.
Yeah, you'd think so. I think his game time has been limited through the championship. I know he did play a bit during the league, but during the championship and again yesterday. So look at his, I don't know, is it 18, 19, 20 seasons or something like that? Like he doesn't know anyone in Laois anything at this stage, and it's just phenomenal to be able to keep going over that period of time. It's just remarkable. But Leisure, I think Aaron said Leisure kind of in a bit of free fall. They were at home. They were 3 points up. I think at one stage they were a man up and still, couldn't seal the deal. But Westmeath have been hanging around in Leinster the last couple of years and been in a final or two. So they are decent. But if ever Leash were going to put one over, that was the time yesterday. That they had the chance, and it just looks like they've kind of, I suppose, thrown their hat out, for want of a better phrase, for another year. And it's really tough on Billy Sheehan. And I seen there was another picture of John O'Loughlin there at the end of the match as well, and another player who's been unbelievable over the years for Leash for a long number of years now as well. And it could be the end of the road for the likes of him as well. He came on there after about an hour and played, but the guys like himself and Munley have seen an awful lot of Leash without a whole lot of success. But it's really hard to know where they're at or where they're going. It just looks in a really bad state there. A lot of the Port Arlington guys not going in as well probably doesn't bode well for what's happening. So Leisure probably are in a little bit of free fall, and Westmeath, I suppose, march on, and as the lad said, or as you said yourself, they're probably one of the favourites, maybe along with the likes of the Cavan to go deep into this competition, and we're kind of comfortable enough in the end.
There's maybe a problem to the solution, Matty. Billy O'Loughlin, Ross Munley, ticket to manage the Laois footballers.
I don't think it's a case of who's over the team. I think it's a far
bigger problem
than that. I said the likes of the Port Arlington lads not committing are very, very few of them. They're county champions, and I have a few friends up in Laois who say they're going to be around for a while. Port Arlington is a place I think that's expanding at a rate of knots, and they've a lot of bodies around, and like they're a bloody good team. They're in a Leinster semi-final as well. So I think our Leinster final. Sorry, they're that doesn't look good for Laois. Port Laois aren't the force they once were in either Laois football or in Leinster football, and won't be again by all accounts for a while either. So that was the club obviously that was feeding most of it, and not only the likes of John O'Loughlin and Ross have been around. Like, there's plenty more guys there. Donny Kingston is around a good while at this stage. Mark Timms is around a long time. So it's probably a team that's probably heading down rather than up, I think. And I think there's probably more dark days ahead for Laois than bright ones.
Yeah, it's you probably Colin Begley, I think, is in that branch.
He retired. He retired last week.
Yeah. So, just to say that as well, Matty, I played with John O'Loughlin at UCD. I've never met a guy as professional. We used to call him the Bull. Talk about gym sessions, talk about fitness. He was a real top player and a real great lad too. Whenever you asked him to come out for UCD hurlers or footballers or whatever else, he was out for it. So a real good guy, and there was never no lack of commitment from him. So sad to see him go in the way that it went,
There you go. And moving on to Offaly and Wicklow in O'Connor Park. It was a convincing win for the Offaly footballers. John Mahon would be happy out. Offaly 18 points, Wicklow 10 points. Kevin McCarthy. Yeah, no,
the McNamee cousins at it again. And look, we all expected Offaly to win. They had a real tight battle down in Wexford, and they came out the right side of that battle. And, that's obviously stood them well. They now go up against New York, and probably that's a plum draw, no disrespect to New York. They're going to have to come across. It's going to be a long journey. I see John Mahon coming out today, and rightly so, saying they're going to treat them with the highest respect. But we would expect Offaly to progress in this tournament. And, as I said to you before, they were very unlucky not to stay in Division 2. They've gone down to 3, and up alongside probably Westmeath, Cavan, Fermanagh would probably be one of the favourites for this tournament. Obviously John and Tomas there, and I say the Wexford game will really stand them in good stead, because obviously Wexford turn them over in the Leinster Championship, and then they go back and obviously get on the right side of that. So bit of character building, another good win, plenty of scores as well, and again that under 20 team to build on from last year. So some bright shoots there from.
Absolutely. Great stuff, lads. Briefly moving on to this weekend's action in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Qualifiers, Round 1. You have Clare against Meath in Cusack Park at 6 p.m. on Saturday, and the game will be live on GA Go. So, Aaron Prendergast, what's the thoughts out of this one?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think these two drew. I think when they played each other in the league, which is interesting, and obviously Meath coming in on the back of the hammering that they got against Dublin. Look, it's an interesting one with Clare. Like, they've been one of those teams that for us, you know, they're not always going to be probably a Division 2 side. Like, when you look through history, like, they've usually sort of been around Division 4, Division 3, and they've a lot of very good players in Owen Cleary, David Tuberty, Keelan Sexton in there as well. Very, very tidy footballer, and maybe they just haven't quite been able to get that big moment or that big victory yet, just for Com Collins' men. And I think you'd like to see them get the victory here at home against the Meath side. I would fancy them. Meath are a strange team. They do have a habit sometimes to produce some big results when you least expect it. But I'll be looking at Clare at home to get the victory.
Super stuff. And moving on to the big one, it's Mayo against Monaghan in Castlebar at 5 p.m. and it'll be live on Sky Sports. Matty Ford.
Bit similar to the Tailteann Cup. Like, we're not, these are Division 1, two good Division 1 teams. I know Monaghan were relegated, but sorry, to stay up, they're two Division 1 teams that have been around for a long time at this stage. We don't know what kind of health they're in. There's some rumours coming out of Mayo of an awful lot of injuries, huge amount of injuries. So
haven't played them in the challenge last weekend. Yeah,
you don't know what Mayo team is going to be on the field, and some of the injuries that they're naming are big name injuries as well. So look, it depends on who's come out their provincial loss in better health. Just through the fact that they're home, I'd give Mayo. I'd tip my hat to Mayo. But look, you just don't know what Monaghan are going to come with. To me, they just look very flat against Derry, and I think it's going to be quite hard to turn that around. And I think we spoke on here after that game that they're probably a team that's a little bit in decline. There's always a kick in Mayo, and Mayo have been a phenomenal backdoor team over the last 10-12 years. So I think on the head of that, I'd hesitantly go for Mayo. I think they're odds on, but I think with their home comforts, and they don't play too many home matches in Castlebar Championship anymore, and with, I'm sure, a crazy mental Mayo crowd as well down there. I'd just about, I think I'd go for Mayo.
Super stuff. So even the dogs barking for Mayo. Whoever owns that one, who's it like? It can't be Kev, because Kev, you're a boozer, aren't you? Whose is it? Aaron? No,
not me anyway.
Aaron, did you let the doggies out, Aaron? No.
No, I've no dogs in here. I'm on mute.
Yeah. Maybe it's Kev. God knows where Kev is.
unless that's a metaphor for something else or something.
Brilliant stuff. And moving on to pity we don't have Mr. Goulding on tonight, lads. It's Cork against Louth in Park Queeve, 2 p.m. GA go, Mr. McCarthy.
Probably the most interesting match out of the three of them. I agree with the other two lads. I think home advantage will count for both Clare and for Mayo. But this game, we don't quite know what we're getting with Cork. Their home form has been abominable. Obviously, Louth are coming into this in the back of a real good Division 3 campaign. But then, obviously, the whole issue with regards what happened against Kildare. It's a long trip down there. You would like to think that Cork have the resources maybe to beat Louth. This is the sixth worst team in Division 2 against the top team in Division 3. So you would expect a nip and tug battle. I just think maybe Cork, if they play the way they did in the first 20-25 minutes against Kerry, I think they should have enough. But neither of these teams are going to go. Whoever wins this team is not going to go further than the next round, if we're honest about it. But just tipping Cork because of the home advantage. I think we should see 3 home wins here, in my opinion.
We more than likely will see that, absolutely. And we're jumping now across to the Tailteann Cup quarter-final. It's Offaly against New York in O'Connor Park at 2 p.m. on GAA Go. So a novice game here. Aaron Prendergast, your thoughts ahead of this game?
Mute there. Which was the game again, John? There, sorry.
Oh, bear with me, my man. The Offaly in New York Tailteann Cup quarter-final in O'Connor Park, 2 p.m. GAA Go.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the story here is New York coming to coming to Ireland. I don't know if they've ever come to Ireland for a championship game.
Kev, where did you say Offaly was the last time we walked?
Well, it's it's halfway across Ireland or something like that. No, I think the Biden White House has been involved in this. There's been sanctions and passports issued and everything.
Sure, half the lads who come over won't be able to go back, so they'll have to field a different team probably to the.
Well, Aaron, not to prolong the conversation, a great story is the former Live footballer Colin Kelly. Apparently, somebody once told him when he was going through immigration at JFK to put his boots around his neck and just say he was from Ireland. He did do that and was turned away at the airport.
Oh, stop. Yeah. No, look, you'd have to fancy Offaly, wouldn't you? I mean, New York put up a brave enough fight, to be fair, against Sligo. Like, it was a much closer game than people expected. Adrian Vardy, I remember, played very well that day.
Great game
for New York. And if he's involved, if he's playing, you'd fancy him to be the main man maybe for New York. Arguably the best forward on the pitch up there with maybe Noel McNamee. But yeah, no, look, Offaly, 2 wins, back-to-back wins now. Obviously, haven't beat Wexford and Wicklow. 8-point victory over Wicklow. So going up against New York at home as well, you'd have to fancy Offaly quite comfortably.
Oh, now moving on to Sunday's action in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Round 1 game. Armagh against Tyrone. And the Athletic Earns have won, RT2. Matty Ford, this game doesn't need much of an introduction.
No, a nice bit of spice to this one after the league encounter as well. It'll be hot and heavy, and obviously it'll give Armagh no greater pleasure than to put out the All-Ireland champions out of championship completely for this year. Look what we said about Tyrone when they lost to Donegal. To Derry. That they haven't been able to back up their All-Ireland championship wins with a whole lot. The only thing I would say for them is they are going to probably have maybe a sprinkling of some of their under-20s coming in.
Rory Canavan's in.
Rory Canavan in, maybe young Madlean, Michael Madlean as well, and possibly 1 or 2 more. So maybe like that will freshen them up a bit. Like Armagh are notoriously difficult to beat at home. In fairness to them, they were exceptional. They were very, very good at home during their league campaign. So look, it really is an intriguing one. This is the game of the weekend. I think, no doubt about it. If I was to call it, I'd actually go for Armagh. I know Tyrone are All-Ireland champions, and they're not going to want to go down there and lose twice in the space of probably 8 or 10 weeks. But I just think Armagh maybe have something about them at home. Look at the bombed out completely up in Donegal in the quarter final. But I think there may be a little bit of a kick in them. But it's going to be interesting. Like we don't know what's happened in these counties since they've been knocked out of the championship. What's been going on in terms of lads playing club games, in terms of what preparation they've done, or really what's going on. So it's a little bit of an unknown. But it certainly will be an interesting one. And it's hopefully we get a better spectacle maybe than the Ulster final at the weekend.
Kevin McGarty, your thoughts ahead of this game?
Me and Matty are 1 for 1, so I think he hockeyed me earlier on in the year and he let me know I maybe beat him with Derry and Donegal. Do you know what? I absolutely expect Tyrone to hockey Armagh this weekend. I'm hearing a lot of rumours coming out of Armagh of injuries. I'm getting that.
Kieran Mackin's out anyway.
I'm getting that from people on the ground. And do you know what? Tyrone will just have the bit between their teeth. And I expect that if things are going bad, they're going to throw in Canavan Jr. and I mean Rory. Matty talks about a kick, and he's totally right. When teams go down, I do expect what he says about Kildare. I do expect a kick out of them, maybe a kick out of Roscommon. But I expect a major bloody kick out of Tyrone. When you're All-Ireland champions and somebody scalps you like that, there's going to be a kick in you. And you know what? No better place to send out a signal than in your home of one of your biggest rivals. And, Armagh notoriously under McGeaney have done all right, but they fail to achieve in the big, big games, the big, big derbies. And I expect Tyrone to go in there and put on a decoration job, if I'm honest with you. Tyrone to go into Armagh and put in a serious decoration job. I'm going to go for Tyrone, and Tyrone handsomely.
Mr. Prendergast, I just feel Gazer needs this win.
Yeah, I think so. I think Armagh will win this on penalties. That's what I think is going to happen. I think this is going to go all the way down to the wire. I think it's going to be maybe quite similar to Derry and Donegal. It's going to be very, very close. It's going to have us on the. Do you know what I think? And I think in a similar fashion to Derry Donegal as well. This is probably going to save the weekend up there with the hurling. I think to be perfectly honest.
If it goes down to penalties, it'll be bloody well like the Stade de France at the weekend. There'll be riots. There'll be people coming over the wire. It'll be mayhem.
Oh, stop! Ah, sure. Look, you'd rather see that in Armagh than in Paris, you know. I know. Look. To be honest, in all seriousness, now I don't really know how this game is going to go. As Kev has said there, like you would expect a kick from Tyrone, but to be honest, we've been expecting that kick from Tyrone for a while now. Like we said, we thought we seen it towards the end of the league when they beat Kerry and they beat Mayo. Then they looked flat enough against Fermanagh. I felt never really got in the game at all against Derry. I know they were down to 14 men for large parts of the game, but I don't know. I just don't really fancy them. I think Armagh are going to be Armagh are at home in this one, aren't they?
At home in the athletic grounds.
Yeah, so I think with O'Neill back as well, Oisin O'Neill I think is back in the team. So for me, I'd fancy Armagh to come through it.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game to look forward to, and we can't wait for that on Sunday. And then moving on briefly to the Tailteann Cup quarter-finals. The quality of the last one there. So you have Fermanagh against Cavan in Brewster Park at 4 p.m. Kevin McGurdy.
This could be a really good open game. Do you know what, John? You're not going to like me, but I'm going to go for Fermanagh. Straight up. Brewster Park's a hard place to go. Kieran Donnelly's a good manager. He'll have them well set up. Yes, I get Gerard McKiernan has been on top form. Paddy Lynch is on top form. But you know what? I'm just going to go for Fermanagh. I'm going to go left field. I'm sorry.
Royce's part of the Cavan setup now, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. Him going up against
Mr. Royce.
Up against Fermanagh, yeah.
Surely, Matty, Cavan.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep you happy here, John, for once. I think Cavan will bring home the bacon out here. Just purely through, I think their bigger scoring threat, and the two lads Kevin mentioned, obviously up the middle, being the two main ones. I just think maybe they've that little bit more scoring power, and I expect them to win, with a few to spare.
Dangerous game, Mr. Prendergast.
It's a very dangerous game, and look, we seen what happened to Cavan against Fermanagh last year. I mean, he's all fancied you'd win that one, and then Fermanagh snuck up by a point. I mean, our Fermanagh, I haven't seen enough of them this year, to be honest, to see if they see. I felt like last year they were very, very well organised. I'm not too sure if they're as organised this year. And like the strange one is with Cavan is you always feel like they have a bit of a howler in them every now and again. Could this be the one? They haven't really had one this year. I mean, could this be it? Could this be the moment? No, look, I think if Fermanagh play well enough, if they get Quigley on the ball, Darren McGurn as well, they should make it a close game. But as much as I'd love to back Fermanagh, I think Cavan will narrowly come.
Oh, lads, I know I'm a bit nervous now. Jeez, lads. Oh my God.
It could be extra time and penalties in this one as well, though,
It could be. It might go to extra time, yeah. Brewster Park, very different place to go to, but hopefully Cavan get over the line. Leitrim against Sligo, Carrick-on-Shannon, 3 p.m. The game will be live on GA. Go, Matty Ford.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Leitrim here. They've been getting close to him, and a little bit of momentum to have. I know Sligo obviously won the weekend as well, but this was actually one of the games where there was a decent crowd out over the weekend in the Tailteann Cup. There was a nice bit of noise last night on the Sunday game from Park Sean McDermott. So I think they're actually favourites to win the game, which is a little bit surprising. If you wanted to back Sligo, I think at least you're getting a bit of value. But I'm gonna go, as Kev said, a little bit left field. I'm gonna give a tip to Leitrim to win this one. Andy Moore and the boys. Keith Byrne again was very good the weekend, and
Mulligan came on too.
Yeah, look at still doing the business. Been around a good while as well, and owes nothing to Leitrim. But look at just out of going for the underdog. I'm gonna give Leitrim a shout here.
And this could have been the competition that Mr. Moran could have been looking forward to and having a run in. Here we go.
look at he's playing again teams of a similar standard, and that's what Andy in particular has been crying out for. So look at, they've got another home game. Obviously, Sligo haven't far to travel. They started off the league quite impressively. Now they did taper off near the end of it, but look at, they're not going to be fearing Sligo coming to Leitrim at the weekend, and I said I give them a right good chance.
Oh, it's going to be an interesting game, lads. It's live on GA Go. For anyone wanting a bit of ball on Sunday, last game of the weekend, Carlow against Westmeath in Netwatch Cullen Park, 2 p.m. Kevin McGurdy, can Carlow upset the odds?
No. Westmeath have too much class. You would expect that. Like, Westmeath are a wee bit like Fermanagh. They've always, are a wee bit like Cavan. They've always a bad game in them, but no, you would expect too much class. Look, fair play to Carlow and Al Crew. After being overturned Tipperary, they didn't have a great year. Great win last year. They're going to take some momentum in there, but I would expect the class to show through in the end. Simple as this. I think Westmeath are a good bet.
Absolutely. Aaron Prendergast, to wrap up your player to watch this weekend and bet of the weekend.
Player to watch at the weekend. I mean, that's a tough one. Maybe, yeah, that's a hard one. Maybe Rian O'Neill going up, and maybe it's an obvious one going up against Tyrone, but I feel like he was so impressive in the early stages of the league. Obviously against Dublin and against Tyrone as well. Like, and I feel like we might get a big performance from him in this game. Bet of the weekend. Loud to be Cork, I'd say.
Nice.
There we go. Mr. McGurdy.
Player to watch, Jack McCarn going down against Mayo. He had such a poor performance against Armagh. And if Mayo were to have Monaghan or have any chance, he's got to stand up this weekend. He is such a good player, but he had such a bad weekend. My bet of the weekend, 6 to be sent off in Armagh City. No, really? Do you want my bet of the weekend?
Yes.
Right, going to go really left field here. New York to beat Offaly.
That could be good, because I was very impressed by New York.
You get great value on that, I'd say.
Yeah.
11-1.
That's good value.
11-1, Matty.
Offaly are 1-33.
That's worth 50p, 50 punt each way in, Cavan.
Absolutely.
We'll throw €2 in each. After.
And they're paying 3 places as well, so a great chance.
Oh, very good.
Former Wexford All-Star, Matty Ford.
Bet of the weekend, I'm going for Clare to beat me down in Ennis. And my player of the weekend to watch, who actually may not play, but if Rory Canavan makes an appearance, to see what can he do against the big boys. And I don't doubt that it's only a matter of time before it's something really spectacular, but just in terms of that game, in the context of that game, to see if he does make an appearance, what kind of an impact can he have. And as I said, I'm sure it's going to be pretty substantial over the coming years, but just in his first senior game, to see how does that go.
Super stuff.
John, can I have an alternative bet of the weekend?
Oh God, here we go.
If Armagh beat Tyrone, a digging match to happen in the Calvin house, because Rory gets on before the brother, and then Petey Hart comes into it as well. So triple digging match in the household.
Peter Canavan's going to be pulling his hair out, Kev.
Did you see the head on him yesterday? They burnt the head off, and BBC couldn't even afford to put him a cap on.
Oshie McConville had sunglasses for the Ulster semi-final, Kev.
Callum had a factor 96 on yesterday.
Yeah, you think they'd give him a hat or something like
that? Right enough, there were frying eggs in his head.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Okay, last point, lads, because the clock's absolutely ran on us. It was a boring weekend, lads. Let's not beat around the bush. There is a badly need for change. Kevin McGurdy, no doubt you have a couple of points on this.
No, very simply. Sean Kelly, the former GA president, tweeted halfway through the Ulster final about how bad the game was. Sean, his brother, used to play for my club. Lovely guy, but unfortunately it's the likes of Sean that are at fault here. It's the GA lawmakers. I've said this, I'll make 3 quick points on it. 1, 13 man aside opens up more space in the field. 2, when you carry the ball over the halfway line, you can't carry it back. And 3, 2 referees, because they'll see the pulling off the ball that's going on up front when people are trying to run. It's all geared towards the forward player. Our game needs to be about attack, not about defence. At the minute, it's so focused on defence. It's too easy for Rory Gallagher. He's playing inside the rules, but he's playing hard and fast with the rules. It's not about the structure of the championship. That's a problem. But the bigger problem is the rules of the game. Simple as that for me. Let's change the rules of the game. And let's get people like Matty Ford, or like people in the GPA, or like, you know, Stephen Barker, who is operations manager in GAA, who's 41 years of age, a very bright mind in the game. Let's get people like that involved in committees that can say, this is the way the game needs to go. Because the rules are the problem.
Matty Ford.
We probably need a bit more of a spectacle that's going to get people through the gate anyway, I think, to start with. And some of Kevin's points are absolutely valid in that. Like, you know, we were saying earlier on even that, you know, we need, personally, I'd like to see more one-on-one football where, look, defending is an art as well. It's not just attacking. So you can have some really, really good defenders one-on-one. Chrissy McKaig is perfect point. I think whether he was mixed up with 10 guys around him or one-on-one in half the field, I think he still does what he does and does it really well. And it's really, really interesting to see something along those lines. Like the structure is not going to change anytime soon. You know, I think this Tailteann Cup thing is a bit of lip service to it, but like real change, I think is probably a good bit away. Everyone is still comfortable enough with their provincial championships that you know, Derry come through, and it's not, I wouldn't say a fairy story, but you know, it's a good goodwill story, and it's good to see them coming through. And even the likes of Galway to a certain extent, you know, you've a really competitive provincial final, but with just too many mismatches, and you know, the longer it goes on, the less and less people. Like, I was in a pub the other evening watching, 99% of the people are actually watching the Heineken Cup in a GA pub as opposed to the Leinster football final. So I think that tells you all you need to know.
GA Fan TV creator and host Aaron Prendergast.
Yeah, no, I very much agree with the two lads there as well. I think change has been needed really for the last 10 years, really. Like, when you think back since 2010, like, you know, you've what provincial shocks have you had? You had the 2 in 2020. You had Derry winning the Ulster title maybe as a surprise, but other than that, you haven't had any provincial shocks at all. And yeah, lots of changes needed. Definitely, I don't know what way they go about it. To be honest, I don't really like the way the proposed format for next year is going to be. I'm not too sure if Proposal B was the answer either. I'm not sure what they do, to be honest. Whether they just go open draw, group stages, 32 teams, Division 1 team in one group, then Division 2, Division 3, Division 4. I don't really know, to be honest. But I do think a lot of emphasis as well has to be placed on improving a lot of the weaker counties as well, to be honest. Like, improving the likes of you know, your Louths, your Leitrim's, your Sligos, because even if they fix the structure and all the rest and they change things around, you're still probably going to get a lot of the same games anyway. The only difference will be Kerry beating Meath by 20 points and Dublin maybe beating Limerick by 25. So, you know, I think a lot of emphasis has to go into, as Kev said there, go into schools, you know, across the country and in some of the weaker counties. You know, you look at Cork, for example, like they're a huge county, a lot of underage success, but their senior team is bog standard, really. Like they you know, they're a kick of a ball away from Division 3. So whilst fixing the championship and fixing the structures,
Get the team sorted.
yeah, it might work a little bit. I still think there's a bigger issue really that people probably aren't talking about, in my opinion, anyway.
Just one more point on that, John. Matty just mentioned the point, right, Aaron? And I want everybody who watches this to Google it. I think it's on 1993 Casement Park. Derry play Down are All-Ireland champions. 1992, sorry. And there's 38 or 39,000 inside Casement Park to watch the game. And the reason why they're going, James McCartan, Fierce, Kieran McKeever, Tony Scullion versus Mickey Linden in the first round of a semi-final of the Ulster Championship, right? Anthony Tohill's in the middle of the park playing, right? The cornerback against the corner forward, McCartan against McKeever. It's like a world championship boxing match. And at the other side, it's the exact same. Exactly what Matty's saying. That's what the guy who's coming through the turnstile, paying his 15 or 20 or 25 euro, wants to see. That one-on-one battle. And the game has gone away from that. 38,000 inside. That was the last time Casement Park was full. It was for that game. And that was four of the best two of the best corner forwards we've ever seen against two of the best cornerbacks. And it wasn't all, we'll team up. It was take him on or face him down. And that was life then. And the game has just gone south since.
There we go, lads. Nice note to leave it on. It really has gone south, and I think we're in for another couple of years of madness. But there we go, lads. Thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgaretch.com and Atak.ie. Use the promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on orgaretch.com and get the best skins, gloves, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. Maddie, Aaron, Kevin, thank you very much.
Cheers, guys. Night.
Cheers, lads. All the best.